with us tonight, as you know, or today in Australia. Philip is with us the third Thursday of every week, every month. And in Australia, that's the third Friday of every month. And today's topic is going to be very interesting. Today's topic is about maintaining peace through frustration and conflict. So I'm sure we all have plenty of thoughts about that. Now, just a bit of housekeeping before I introduce Philip. You need to remember that the comments expressed by the hosts and the guests on Angel Heart Radio are our points of view, and they're not to be taken as legal or medical advice. And Anaya is feeling a little under the weather today. She's not all that bad, but she just thought it was better that she has a quiet day today. So it's just Philip and I today, and I'm delighted to introduce Philip Duxfield to everybody.
Good evening, all. Good morning to Australia. good day, all, I suppose.
Hi, everyone. So today's subject, we asked Philip what he would like to talk about today, and so he's chosen the subject for today. So do you want to have a talk to us about your point of view about that?
Thank you. Yeah, boy, there's always a lot of things you can talk to when you're thinking about what to bring before an audience such as all your wonderful selves. And one thing that I suppose becomes very common, not just in the COVID world, but in recent years and at all stages of life, I suppose, as well, is how to maintain peace through episodes of frustration, through episodes of conflict, which, you know, I suppose we'll struggle so hard to learn with over time. And there's so much in that one statement that you can delve into, so much to break down. And yeah, there's lots of sorts of directions and things we can explore then. But when we're having an interesting conversation about it before, Carol Ann, just lots of things that we were talking about of things you've been through and lessons you've learned, and wonderful lessons from your mum about just going through frustration times and going through conflicts. Yeah, I love what you said before, which is probably a great place to start. How your mum was when you were encouraging your mum to do a reading for you, and your mum was like, you know what, you've got this. You're going to make your own mistakes. You're going to fall down from time to time, but she just had such unwerving faith in your ability to learn from those times you fell down. So what a wonderful place to start the subject, I think.
Yeah, it is, and you know it. At the time, I thought, oh, gosh, this isn't fair, because for those who don't know, my mum was an amazing clairvoyant. So she did lots of readings and counselling with people in a spiritual way. And I always wanted her to do a reading for me, but she said, no. She said, you have to live your life. You have to fall down and you have to stand back up again. And this is something we all need to be aware of with ourselves, and with our children. So, you know, it was wonderful advice. And I just want to say, if anybody is watching us on YouTube or one of the other live streamings, we can't see your messages unless you come across to the Angel Heart Radio Facebook page. So if you want to come along and if you have a question for Philip, you know, I'll be delighted to put that to Philip, and he can share his answer with you.
Yes, definitely. So perhaps a good place to get started is just exploring that thing that is frustration. When that example you had, Carol Ann, about how it's a good thing for us to learn how to fall over and pick ourselves up and learn from that, it starts quite quickly to paint a picture of frustration as being a beneficial thing, which immediately we tend to forget, right? The second we're frustrated, where does that lesson go? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it.
I'm so guilty of this myself. And often, I think I get into a spiral before I can recognize the benefit of frustration. I have to go somewhere, have a vent. Some people call it a pity party. Go away, just, allow yourself to be angry, allow yourself to feel those not so pleasant aspects of whatever it is that you're going through. And then, as you were saying before, Carol Ann, allow yourself to step back from the situation for a second and look at it from outside and see, what am I missing, or what's going on behind the scenes that I can use to review the situation is the frustration trying to teach me something? Is there another issue that I'm not seeing because I'm too emotionally invested in protecting my ego or protecting myself from attack from another person? What's the situation or the person actually saying? Is the problem or the person, are they coming at me with a criticism or a conflict that's actually not the issue at all? Are they saying something without saying it, or are they trying not to say something? Are they hiding behind their frustrations? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole little spiral, isn't it, that we can go into sometimes, and looking for the reasons for the situation, and we can just blow it all out of proportion at times, because that's sometimes the human side of us that does that. And I this last couple of weeks, I've just tried to step back at things that are happening in my life and become the observer, taking a deep breath, which I think is so important for everybody in a situation. And sometimes, we don't take a deep breath. We don't stop and breathe and think, and okay, why is this happening? As you just said, what am I experiencing? Why am I experiencing it? And what do I need to learn from this experience, that I can perhaps need to think about something a little bit differently to what I was thinking about it originally?
Yeah, definitely. And I like to I spend a bit of time, especially with my clients, talking about the ego.
Mm-hmm.
Ego. People tend to have a different definition of ego for themselves, but they may not have really taken time to think about what it means to them, what their relationship is with their ego. Some practitioners like to say that the ego is a bad thing, but in my experience, maintaining a healthy ego is something that it's pretty good to spend some time doing. If you can recognize where your ego is and what challenges your ego, it's easier then to step back from, especially interpersonal conflicts, and say, oh, it's maybe it's not about me. Maybe it is just a type of conflict that's not ego-centered at all. And even if I have done something wrong, and even if it is my mistake or my bad, so to speak, if I'm maintaining my ego, then I can accept those sorts of criticisms, and it allows me to process conflict a lot easier. So, Caroline, what's your interpretation or appreciation of the ego?
Okay, that's interesting. So I was just about to ask you exactly the same question. So I think one of the things is, to me, the ego has always been given a bad press, so to speak. Everybody says, it's bad to have an ego. It's bad to have an ego. But I think also, to me, what the ego does, the ego helps us to make some decisions in life. Because if we don't look at, say, we might get told, oh, you're fantastic, you're just the person to step forward for this job, and you need to go and do that job. And then somebody else will say, well, who do you think you are to think you can do that job better than somebody else? And then sometimes you need that ego to say, okay, you do need to step forward. You need to take the chance to take this job, because this is the next part of your life. But if you had then thought, oh no, my ego is telling me I'm too big for my boots, I won't try that job, then I think that's when I see the ego as something different. I think the ego we can use, but we need to use it in a way that is for our highest good, and not just for something that I'm going to get gain out of this, I'm going to get more money out of this job or whatever. But it's about learning and growing. If I took that job, I'm going to grow into that job, and I'm going to learn to do more things. So I think, to me, the ego has been given a lot of bad press, but I think the ego can be used in many ways. That's my thought about it.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree.
Oh, thank you.
So it comes up a lot when I'm doing coaching for leadership roles in an organizational psychology capacity. And like most things in life, I put it on a continuum. And I find people tend to fall either one or two sides of the continuum. And you've either got people who fall into the ego protecting side or the ego growing side. So you see this a lot in the workplace, where if you want to get the best out of an employee, you have to first ascertain whether they are ego protecting or ego growing. So if you want to motivate, inspire an ego protecting person, you have to understand first that they're in a position where if they're offered challenge, they're more inclined to shy away because their ego is a bit fragile. And you have to protect your ego, because if your ego gets too low, then you're literally sliding into depression and everything's far too hard and you'll completely retreat from the world. So if you're ego protecting, you first need to know that you are valued, safe, like we talk about all the time. You need to know that you're loved and valued where you are. And if you can get a person to feel ego protected long enough and safe enough, then they'll start feeling ready to explore out in their world. But yeah, ego protecting people are not ready for conflict. It's not that they're not able to handle conflict, they're just not ready. Yeah. So if any of this is ringing a bell for you, there's just maybe it's time to start nurturing your ego a little bit, which is about finding ways to feel good about you, to feel good about what makes you you, feel good about your talents. Trust me, you have something to offer. So then there's the side of the coin, the ego nurturing, so the ego challenging people. So these people already think they've got intrinsic value. They feel like they've got talents. They feel like they've got something to share. They want to achieve things. So conversely, if you're not always challenging these people and saying, I've got something new for you to do, I've got something new for you to learn, they get frustrated, they get bored, and they'll generally go and find somewhere else where they can be challenged. These people generally are okay with conflict. If you offer them a criticism, they generally go, great, a chance for me to grow. It sounds like the happy place to be. Obviously, even this can go too far, where people can get obnoxious and they can say, I can do anything. They can often step out well beyond their capabilities, and this can lead to monumental failures. Or they can take your business interests and they can do quite destructive things because they go, no, we're going this way, going this way, going this way. And then it's like, wow, you've gone far too far.
Yes, and that's just, can I just interrupt you there? And that's one of the really interesting things about how each of us are so unique. We have such different personalities and we have such different ideas and ideals about where we are in our life and what we want to get from our lives. And this is, I think, one of the things that we need to take into consideration when we're thinking about this, that we're all so different. And I know I've got friends who are just so much like you were just saying, you know, that they know they can do this and they can go for it and the sky's the limit and nobody is going to stop them. And you know, then others like me sometimes will think, oh my goodness, you know, you are so brave, you are so courageous. But, you know, it's just, I love the fact that we are all so different and we're all unique. But we also need to remember we're living together, not in community, for want of a better expression. But, you know, so we have to look at that balance between them all, and we have to get that balance.
Yes. Yeah. Also, I'm glad that we can cover that that healthy ego functioning, because I want everybody to believe that nurturing your ego and having it in a place where you feel good about you is absolutely your happy place. That's your achievement space where you're able to receive criticism, as long as it's done in a good way. But even if it's not, that's sort of well on the path to resilience, I would say, if that makes sense, Carol Ann.
It does. And in life, no matter where we are in life, what our lifestyle is, what stage we're at, we need to have some inbuilt resilience, because, you know, this is our soul is traveling in this lifetime. And so we need to protect our soul, but we also have to protect ourselves and look after ourselves, because we're the only one who is doing this journey for ourselves. We're not doing the journey for anyone else. And that was something that I had to sort of come to grips with, that I can't live anybody else's journey for them. I just have to live my own journey.
Yeah, well put. So moving on and exploring a little bit more about frustration, and we will get onto conflicts and delve into that a bit more soon as well. But initially, I like to spend a bit of time with people just exploring frustration and what it is. Because at the end of the day, frustration is the only thing that precedes change, and it's the only thing that precedes growth.
Yep.
And this is the part about it that stings so much. Because on some level, we know that we want things, we want to achieve things, and frustration is how we go through there. So I've spent much time with clients and myself trying to embrace this relationship with frustration, as it's your personal trainer, it's your drill sergeant. It's the thing that by the time you get to the front lines makes you ready to not just survive, but actually succeed and thrive.
Well, that's right. Because we all have those days that we just think, just for a simple thing, I don't really feel like going for a walk today. It'd be much more comfy to just sit here on the couch and read my book or do my whatever. And then the other part of you is saying, no, to be healthy and to get out in the air, walk, do what you need to do. And that's that's a very mild way of looking at it. But sometimes when we need to get frustrated with something and say, well, I'm not going to just sit here and read a book. I'm going to do more with my life, even if it's just going for a walk around the block every day for the next 12 months. So it's frustration makes us move. It gets us gets us off the couch and gets us moving in life and many things, not just physical things, but where we want to go internally, where our heart wants us to go.
Yes. There's a term that I use a lot called the frustration point. So people often come to me and say, boy, there's lots of things that I want to do, but, I procrastinate, or I make excuses, or I let little things get in the way. And they're like, I don't know what to do about it. And the first thing I like to say to people is, in your own time, you will reach your frustration point. And this is the point where you want it bad enough and you've let it go for long enough that you are ready to make a change. And I love that, because it's not like someone else will take you there or some opportunity will present itself and that will get you out. It will come from you, and it will come from inside you when you are ready. But nobody knows where that frustration point is. It's waiting at the end of yourself at some point. And sometimes all you're doing is just holding a person's hand while they walk themselves down to that frustration point. And it can be hard because things are getting worse and worse and worse. But it's just a process that you have to go through.
And this is it. Sometimes we get down there into what we might call survival mode. And so we go into our little cave and we're just trying to survive in our little cave, and we're not wanting to come out into the world because we don't like what's happening or like what we've got to face up to. And sometimes, we go into that survival mode and we don't want to have anything to do with anyone or anything. And then, it's like, okay, I can't stay in here forever. I have to face the world. And so that to me is a combination of frustration, because you've been frustrated with what's happening, but you don't know how to deal with it. So you go into your cave, and going into your cave, it might give you a little bit of respite for a little while, but it's not going to solve the problem. It's not going to solve the situation. It's not going to change anything. So you have to come out of that cave. You have to come out of your survival mode, take a big breath and face reality and get on with it, because it's not going to happen unless you do something.
Yeah, but the encouraging part of it is that even all those hours or days or months or sometimes even years that you spend in your cave, that may not feel like you're getting closer to anything, but you are. You're getting closer to your frustration point. You're getting closer to that point where suddenly you feel like you're able to learn whatever you need to learn, change whatever you need to change, grow wherever you need to grow to achieve what you want to achieve. So it's all
I like that. I like that terminology, that frustration point. I think that I like that terminology, because I think that that's something that, if we think about it, then there is something there. There is a point where we can then burst out.
Hmm. Cool. Thank you.
No, that's good. I haven't come across that terminology before, and I quite like it. Mm.
Yeah, there are other practitioners who call it a different thing, but it does come up, regularly. That was just the easiest for me to wrap my head around it.
Yes. So yeah, but you know, we all need to, as far as I'm concerned, thinking about frustration and conflict and trying to maintain peace. I think we all have had things in our lives that have come up, and we've acted on it, and then, oh, that was probably not the right way to go. And I think, to me, the thing to look at that is, way to look at that, a way I would look at it is, I would think, okay, this is how I reacted to that today. So did I react to that out of anger, or did I react out of love? And I probably, if I'm upset with myself about it, I've reacted out of anger. So then I need to think about reacting out of love. How would I change that situation? So by then changing how we would react to that situation, it gives us growth, and it helps us to learn and to move ahead in life with a different point of view.
Yeah, and what a great point to raise about surviving or maintaining your peace through conflict and frustration is learning how to not react. So,
And that's hard.
reacting is so a couple of weeks ago, I spent a lot of my time working in disabilities, and I've been looking after one gentleman who he's about 10 years older than me. I've been keeping tabs on him for about 12 years now, just checking in, picking him up, having coffees, and he was able to hire me as his therapist about a year ago because he got approved for a support pension here in Australia. He part of his supports were not going quite so well, and the organisation who was supposed to be doing things like organising cleaning of his house were not really, it wasn't happening. So I sat down with a meeting with the organisation and said, what can I do? Can I bring on one of my workers? Can we get the house cleaned? It all seemed pretty reasonable. The end result of this was that organisation decided to cut me off and try to separate me from the client by separating our funding. So
Wow.
you can imagine, at the time, there were lots of things I wanted to say to lots of people. I wanted to write emails. I wanted to make some phone calls. I wanted to report certain things to certain commissions. But I've learned the hard way when to shut my mouth, take a few days, and come back at it when I wasn't so boiling over. And I'm the first to say, I don't think anger is a bad or wrong reaction. Anger is phenomenally motivating, but a very wise man once said, anger is like fire. It's destructive when it's out of control.
Exactly.
So we're moving through with the situation now, but yeah, isn't it a great lesson when you're going through conflict? Maintaining peace is about learning not to react. If you want to react, probably the thing to do is to step back and wait until you can act rather than react.
Yes. And that's interesting about the anger and the fire, because, to me, fire is just so, it's all about regeneration. It's all about passion. It's all about all of those things. And we all need some fire in our lives. But I agree thoroughly. I've been in a situation like that I've wanted to immediately react, type up an email or something, whatever. And I sometimes have sat down and made some notes as a little draft, and then I'll come back to it a couple of days later and I think, I'm really glad I didn't send that day, because I can word that and I can do it so completely different, so that it's coming from a different place. It's coming then from a place of understanding and not necessarily agreeing with what was said or done or acted on or whatever, but it's coming from a place of understanding. And then by my understanding, I can maintain the peace and get my point of view across, but not in a just a, whoa, I need to act out of anger way.
Yes, staying constructive.
Staying constructive. So now, by the way, everybody, so Philip's company or business is Rogue Therapies, and you can find them on the internet at any time, and we'll get some more information from Philip at the end of the show as to how you can contact him, but you can always contact Philip either directly or through Angel Heart Radio.
Cool. Thanks, Caroline.
Right.
So now that we've talked a bit more about frustration, it can be good to talk about what actually frustrates us as individuals, because knowing what frustrates us can often be quite a significant window into what we are struggling with, or what we're missing, or what we feel we're missing out on. What do you think, Caroline? Does that highlight anything for you?
Well, it just makes me think about when I was younger, because I'm a Scorpio, so Scorpios can have a little bit of anger, and I suppose when I was growing up, I was quite different to the person that I am today. But I was basically the person I am. But I know that I had a temper, and I know that I could, just react out of anger, and it didn't really get me anywhere, because then I would get frustrated with myself because I had been angry at a situation, or I had reacted in a certain situation. And perhaps that was the beginning of my change, that then I could sort of realize, okay, so that anger, it might have for an instant, a half a millisecond, felt good, I've got them back or whatever. But then when I stopped and thought about it, maybe 10 minutes later or an hour or a day later, it didn't do me any good, and it didn't do the other person any good either. And so then I had to look at about changing within myself. And, I think that anger and that just, it doesn't, we need to be able to stand up for ourselves at the same token. We don't need to be walked over by other people or used by other people. But it's about how we handle that in our lives. And it's about how we come from a place of, I think that nowadays I come more from a place of compassion and kindness and gratitude, because I can see the difference that makes by me not getting instantly anger. But then, some kind of type of anger, it's good even if you just feel a little bit of anger within yourself, because it makes you stop and think sometimes that, okay, why is this happening? What am I learning from this? What do I need to change to move forward in my life? And that's the way I sort of look at it.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah, and I always say that without anger, a lot of wonderful things in the world wouldn't have happened. Because there are certain people who got very angry, like Martin Luther King got very angry, and what wonderful things happened because he got angry about something. You know what I mean? Like, if people didn't get angry about women's suffrage, if people didn't get angry about slavery, what would have changed?
Exactly. And these are the things, you look around at what's happening in a few things nowadays, and it's like some people are trying to wipe the slate of history, but history got us where we are now. And if we wipe the slate of what's happened in the past, then the generations to come could possibly make the same mistakes. And so we need to realise what has come, as you say, from Martin Luther King and people like that. And I think that this is purely my personal point of view. I believe that all that's happening in the world at the moment, like with the riots and with things coming to the surface now, they're coming to the surface because they have not been healed, and they need to be looked at and they need to be healed. So in those ways, anger is good. But, we need to sort of also have a control over our anger and not be angry just for the sake of our personal gratification. Yes.
Yeah. And again, what these emotions trying to teach us, I think for me personally, by my experience, is I like to spend a lot of my time helping people. It's just, just the way I'm programmed. I don't feel I'm special or anything. It's just, I'm not good with numbers, but I'm good at this. So that's
Yep.
what I do. That's
Yeah.
what I'm put on earth to do. So if I was trying to help people in the past, as per my previous example, and people were getting in the way, it would cause me to lose my temper very, very quickly. But there was also a bit of a lesson there. I was holding people up to expectations and standards which weren't realistic.
Yeah.
They don't see the world through my eyes. They don't have my skill set. They don't have. With my skill set comes a certain level of patience for certain people doing certain things. So expecting them to react or even feel as passionately as I did about certain things was a bit. It wasn't realistic at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it also highlighted to me a bit how I think I got a bit angrier with them because I was holding myself to unrealistic expectations as well. And spending a bit of time exploring that actually helped myself to not always be there for people, to take more time for myself, to say to people, actually, no, I can't do that for you today as much as I'd like to. I'm tired, or I have to give time to my family or my partner.
Mm-hmm.
So it highlighted perhaps a bit of a deficiency in myself as well. And it can be hard to use criticisms and conflicts and attacks as ways to look in the mirror for yourself. But often they can be, just a very easy way to have a look and say, man, is there some deficiency that I really need to be addressing?
Yeah, and maybe not so much a deficiency, but a different way of looking at it and a different way of approaching, because this is how, you have this amazing skill set, and this is what puts you apart from other people. And so this said, people have all their own skill sets. And then sometimes when we have these unrealistic expectations of people, then it's we have to stop and think, okay, they don't have that skill set, so perhaps there's something that I can do differently that's going to mean that skill set that they don't have is not going to affect my client in another way. Or and I think the important thing to remember here is not to be hard on yourself, because let's face it, we're all hardest on ourselves. We're harder on ourselves than we are on anybody else. So, then it's a case of taking that breath and thinking, okay, so I'm reacting, I'm being hard on myself, but I've done the best I can at this time. So what else do I need to learn or to experience so that I can help somebody else in this same situation in the future and not come up against this conflict that I've come up against this time?
What a terribly healthy way of looking at things.
Well,
Yeah,
sometimes, but we are hardest on ourselves, and I'm exactly the same, and but this is where, in a spiritual sense, which is, I suppose, is where I'm coming from well, no, not most of the time, because I'm living a very human life as well. We need to be accepting of, this is who we are, this is why we're here. Okay, so I'm going to do the very best that I can. And if I need to learn some more skills to be able to do something slightly different, then that's what I'll do. But to me, I'm very much a part, my belief is about finding balance in our life. And, I know that you're working in and helping and supporting people in so many ways. So, that balancing that part of your life with your personal life and then your home life and all of the other parts of your life, for me, it's so important to have balance in my life and living the balance between my human experience in life and my spiritual experience in life. And the other day I was out doing some gardening, and this thought came into my head, and I know that one of my guys put it in there. Carol, you're having a very human day today. You're in the garden. And it was just so funny. But it's we are, in this lifetime, and we are doing the very best we can. And, you know, you are doing a marvelous job. And so you need to pat yourself on the shoulder occasionally and sort of not think to yourself, well, you know, what didn't I do here? It's a time that you can grow and expand your knowledge about different things, because things are changing so quickly out there in the world. I look back at when I was a little girl growing up, and I just think to myself, we didn't have telephones, we didn't have TV, we didn't have any of these things, you know. And so life is moving forward at such a pace that, you know, it would be very difficult to be a fait with every single thing. But when something happens, then it's an opportunity for you to okay, what's the next bit I need to learn to expand my knowledge and my wealth of how I can support the clients who come to me.
Yeah. And I think the point that you're saying, if I can put it a little more succinctly, is when you have human days, give yourself permission to have human days.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. You know, talking about human days, I can remember I had a lady ring me about 6 months ago, and she was given my name and said, Carol, what are you? And I said, well, today I'm a grandmother. I've just had a wonderful day with my grandchildren. No, that's not what I mean. What do you do? So, you know, I told her a few things. And she said, I just don't know what to label you. And I said, don't label me anything, because, you know, I don't wear a label. I'm, you know, whatever I happen to be at that time. And she just picked me at a wonderful time that I could say, no, I'm a grandmother today. So, you know, I think sometimes people do like to put labels and you know, have these expectations of people. But, you know, we have to be kind to ourselves.
Yes. Yes, very good.
All okay, right. So what else do we need to talk about?
Well, shall we
so
move on?
far, I haven't had any questions come in on Restream. I don't know if it's not working today or not. So, you and I will just keep on talking.
Yeah, and they can always post questions to us later. We can follow
up.
That's
right, exactly.
Time, that's fine. So I think moving on to types of conflicts might be a good point to put in this point. And you can find lots of different types of conflict, but to keep things simple, I try and keep it to as few as possible, because I tend to find once you've got a few highlighted, they sort of cover 90% of the conflicts that you come across in day to day, particularly in things like your workplace or your relationships, like marriages and the like. Which brings me to the first, which will be value conflicts. So quickly, when I'm covering conflicts, the ones I like to cover are value conflicts, ego conflicts, and simple factual conflicts. Factual conflicts are obvious. You might say to your friend, the War of Independence started in this year, and your friend might go, no, it didn't, it started in this year, and you might argue about it. But that's a fact conflict. So it's a simple kind of conflict, and it's easy to fix, right? You've got Google. Ask Google.
Yep.
Difficult ones are your value conflicts and your ego conflicts. Value conflicts, first of all, can be difficult, and they come up a lot in relationships. And they may come across, for example, where he might come home from work and he's done a 70-hour week and he's exhausted and he feels like he's doing a good job for his family. And his partner may look at him and say, where's my quality time? And, and of course, he may go, quality time, I spent 70 hours working for my family, where's my appreciation? And his partner may say, I never asked you to do that. I want you to be here. I want quality time. I want you to spend time with me, with my family. You can see quite quickly how no one's wrong in this situation, but it's just an issue of those priorities which we set, which sometimes we didn't even know we set until it's 6 months down the track and we're living according to these priorities. And sometimes you look at your partner who you know and love so well, and suddenly you realize we've got quite different priorities in this area, don't we? So this is what we talk about with a value conflict.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, that's really interesting, you know, talking about a marriage. I was only reading something in the local paper today, and this couple were celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary. And they said that what had kept their marriage together was communication, but also activities in their life, activities together, but separate activities. And so, you know, I thought it sounded like they had a really, really good arrangement there. And I've been married for a long while. I've been married over 51 years. And so to me, I always believe that in a marriage, yes, you're married, you have a family, and that's your unit, but you have to be an individual within that unit. You have to have your own friends in life, but you have it all together as well. So, you know, that's the way I've always looked at the marriage relationship. And I can understand why, you know, people say, oh, you know, I've worked 70 hours for the family. Where's my gratitude? And the wife is saying, where's my quality time? So these are things that you have to discuss. I mean, you don't have a long marriage if you don't talk about things. And it doesn't mean that it's a nice, smooth road all of the way, because, you know, it's not, because that's not reality. We have to come into reality of life and to discuss about, you know, what's expected of one another. And as children grow and they go to school and they have their activities and so, you know, it's once again, it's coming back to that balance, communication and balance within their lives.
Yeah, definitely. And the funny thing about all long-term, healthy, successful relationships, and I'll ask you to correct me if I'm wrong here, Caroline, because you're in a long-term, healthy, successful relationship, is one might on the outside look at that situation and go, these people have different values. Perhaps they're not right for each other. But this tends to be those people who have opposing values to you are actually the perfect partner for you. Would you agree?
I'd agree. I can remember once being told by a lady who had been doing some kind of healing workshop here, and she had said to me, it's like you and your husband are on pathways out here, but you always come back to the pathway here, and that will become stronger as you get further into your marriage. And I thought that was a really interesting perspective of it, because we can't live in one another's pockets all the time. We can't put ourselves in our partner's shoes. And so, you know, we have to be aware of the differences in our lives. And if we were all exactly the same, what a boring, jolly world we would be living in.
Yes, well, it's certainly a boring marriage, wouldn't it be?
It's exactly right. Well, you know, you wouldn't really be there, would you? But, you know, yeah, it would be boring. It would be boring. So we have to have our own lives within that situation.
Yes. And in these long-term relationships, when these value conflicts surface, rather than seeing it as a conflict, once you know that these ways which your partner complements you by being a different person to you, you can use this as an opportunity to reframe that conflict as an opportunity. This is something that's trying to provide you balance. And there are lots of very atypical ways this presents itself in relationships. Like you've generally got someone who in a relationship is a spender when it comes to money, and you've generally got someone who is a saver. And this makes for a good relationship. You've generally got someone who's a stay-at-home person and someone who's a going-out person and socializing with friends. Again, this is a great pairing for a relationship.
Yeah.
If two spenders get together, they end up broke. If two savers get together, they're missing out on so much that life has to offer.
Yeah.
So if your partner comes and says, I feel as if you're too much this way, what we can do is we can say, maybe I am, maybe I'm letting my need to work hard dominate my life. And if I don't allow this opportunity to find balance and step back, maybe it's actually going to be for my good to listen and heed and adjust. Because, I mean, no one knows you better than your partner at the end of the day.
I was just going to say exactly the same thing. You know, when you have those situations, then, you know one another so well that instead of looking at it as a criticism, it's like, okay, so let's look at this situation. Let's work through the situation and see how we can work it better for our relationship and for our life, the rest of our lives together. Because this is then the communication bit that comes along, isn't it? So it's about sorting it out between you. And this is, I agree totally with that.
Yeah. And isn't this the part that we get better at as we go along? As if we're the person saying to our partner, I feel that you are too much in this way. I feel like you're working too much, or I feel like you're spending too much, or I feel like whatever the criticism is. If it's our responsibility to sit our partner down and say, I'm concerned, this is the part that we get better at over time, right? Is sitting them down and saying, I'm concerned, rather than going, you're always at work. Why are you never here? I feel neglected. And,
Yeah, and
also
that's
part of
right.
the balancing act, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we do get better at that over time, and we come about it in a completely different way. So, it's like you. It's not exactly growing together because you're still individuals, but you understand more about what's happening, and that comes with just knowing one another. And I think sometimes sometimes we can pick it up ourselves and think, okay, I'm being a bit of a social butterfly this week, and that's not being very fair. And so then within ourselves, we can change that before it gets to a frustration or before it gets to a conflict or a need to communicate about it. And this is about, this comes back to the first part of today's discussions. It's about maintaining the peace within that situation because you understand where each other is coming from. You might not totally 100% agree with it all of the time because then that wouldn't be healthy, I don't think. But you can understand where and why it's coming, where it's coming from and why it's happening. So it helps you to sort of become more the observer about yourself, because sometimes you need to be the observer about yourself, don't you, about what's happening and what you're doing.
Yes. Yeah. One of those skills that a few of us tend to naturally, but all of us could benefit from nurturing, which is the ability to be introspective and to step back from yourself and assess your actions and assess how you're reacting to other people's actions and go, is this the way I want to keep reacting?
Yeah. Yeah, and this is it. And I think that's part of, being healthy within yourself, your relationship with yourself, as well as your relationship not only with your partner, but with all of the people in your life and the people that you come into conflict with. Because if, you need, to me, I believe that if we can maintain this healthy, peaceful self, then that flows out to the people around us. It doesn't mean that we have to stop reacting in any way whatsoever. It doesn't mean we have to stop living our life, because then what would be the purpose of us being here? But it's about how we act in situations and how we move forward in life together as a community and as a family and as all of the people in our lives as a group.
And can I just, as I always like to do, challenge the men in the audience, if there are some, and
sure there are,
in relationships. And again, I'll wait for you to correct me if I'm wrong, Carol Ann, but in healthy relationships, particularly as they're starting out, I challenge men to give their partners permission to react, be emotional, fly off the handle, go crazy, and their job is to be their rock. Doesn't matter whether their partner is angry about something else or angry at them. It's the male's responsibility to be calm, accept it, and not react. And over time, that creates a trust and it creates a stability where she feels like she can always lean on her rock, and it gives her permission to figure things out and to go a bit crazy. And I think it allows an environment where everybody is now in a situation where they can figure stuff out, which again, they can feel frustration, they can do it in a healthy and safe and supported environment, and they now have the opportunity to grow a lot.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. And I agree that it creates a relationship that in the future and long term, or, even if it's only next week, that, the female can understand that she can be herself. She doesn't have to hide any part of herself from her partner, because, but it also works both ways. And you know, I believe that this is all part of the talking together and sorting things out together, because life is not easy. It's a bumpy road, and so we all have these emotions, we all have these feelings, and this is what we need to be able to express in a healthy way to our partners and to everybody else, because that way then we've been able to share it with them, and they will give feedback, and they will offer security, and they will offer trust and love. But then occasionally they'll have a day, the male will have a day that he needs to vent, and his female partner can be his rock. And, you know, it's like when we have children and grandchildren, you know, they sometimes have days that they need a rock as well. And they need somebody that they can really express how they feel about whatever. But to have that rock is so important for all of us in our lives.
Yep. And I can encourage the women by saying that, because it always happens this way, where a woman will finally feel happy and safe with her partner. Sounds great, right? But then suddenly all of these buried things and traumas will start to bubble up in her, because she finally feels safe enough that suddenly the floodgates open. But this is healthy processing. And a lot of guys would come and say, wow, we were so happy, and now she's freaking out. And I'm like, no, but trust me, this is the way it's supposed to happen. And be warned, once she's finished processing her stuff, it's your turn.
Yes.
And all his stuff will come up, and then he gets to be the emotional crazy one. So yeah, trust me, she gets her turn as well.
And you know, this is one of the wonderful things that we can do with one another and with our partners and with everybody in our life. Because, you know, when we can truly be ourselves, let our emotions out, do all of those things, say how we truly feel within. Because if they don't come out, they bottle up in there, and then it's even worse, because they have nowhere to go except to destroy ourselves and the way we feel about ourselves. So to be able to release those emotions, whether we're the female, the male, the children, whoever, and to feel safe in doing that, that is just the most amazing and wonderful thing that can happen for all of us.
Definitely. And so the last one I wanted to touch on was that the ego conflict that I mentioned before.
Yeah.
And ego conflict can be a lot harder to manage, because it can be a lot more challenging for us to admit that it's really on us. Even though we may feel that it's everybody else's fault, we may feel that we're the person with a good idea that no one else is listening to. Sometimes if we look at the conflict long enough, and we'll realize, actually, I feel like it's my ego that's being challenged, that almost always puts the onus back on us to make things good, to reframe the question, to reframe the goal of the conflict, and to try and separate our ego from whatever it is that's going on. And of course, ego conflicts can happen anywhere. They can happen in the home, outside of the home, with friends, in the workplace. Yeah. And they can be very hard to identify as well.
Yes, they can be hard to identify. But, you know, once again, it's a fact of looking at the whole situation before reacting. And you know, sometimes though, you know, that conflicts happen in our lives, and people might leave our lives. But, you know, that's then for all of our highest good. And so, you know, we can't hang on to people perhaps that we've had a conflict with, or that our ego has overtaken the situation or told us to get out of that situation. So, you know, it's to me the key to everything that we've sort of talked about today. There's a couple of keys. To me, it's about communication. It's about being the observer. It's been taking a deep breath before we react. You know, like before you send out that anger email or letter or whatever. And so, you know, we can maintain the peace, but we also need to give ourselves some slack, and to realise that we're human. We're here to experience emotion and free will. So, you know, let's experience it, but then let's maintain the peace around the whole situation.
Indeed.
Indeed. Well, we're just about out of time, Philip. So I've really enjoyed today, and I hope Anae is feeling better. I'm sorry that we haven't got anything up on Restream. But you can put your comments on the comment section, and Philip will happily answer those, or I can answer those, whatever has happened. So how can people get in contact with you, Philip, if they need to contact you?
Just go to Facebook and look for us at Rogue Therapies.
Rogue Therapies. Wow. I hope you have a really interesting week. And is there anything you want to finish off on in the last couple of minutes?
No, I think we've touched on lots of good stuff there. So lots to dwell on. And I need to stop adding new ideas before the ones that we talked about at the beginning of the hour fall out again.
Oh, well. So we hope Anaya is feeling a lot better. And I look forward to seeing you in a month's time on the third Thursday in America and the third Friday in Australia. I won't be with Anaya next week. I'm going away for a few days holiday. And so Anaya will be flying solo next week instead of me flying solo, even though I had Philip with me today. So I hope everybody has a really good day, and we look forward to seeing you all in the future. So thank you again, Philip, from Rogue Therapies, and you have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. So bye, everybody. Lots of love. See you next time. Okay, bye for now.